one of the biggest issues a clinician has in terms of growing their business is scaling themselves.
Yes. The problem that we're trying to solve, since 1988 actually, is artists can have a one-to-many relationship with their fans, right? They basically have an album, they can distribute to their fans, and they have a relationship with their fans. But doctors and practitioners have to do it one-on-one. They see one client or one patient at a time. So we're only billable by the hour. I've always been looking for a solution. So I created one where you could be represented by a custom avatar of you that's able to answer whatever questions your patients may have, a lot of their test results, and so on. Probably 20 people can be asking you things at the same time in their own time zone and so on without you actually having to be there. But you are actually also sure that the information that's being given out by you or your digital twin is actually accurate and understandable by your patient or your client.
To start our 2025 Outlook podcast, I think it is appropriate to introduce two new faces.
Look at these two beautiful faces.
I know.
Wow.
Yeah.
They're so smiley.
So smiley.
Yeah. They have good facial hair. I think your facial hair actually matches, except you just have less of it. You don't need to have hair to be on the HOMeHOPe team, but you need to have facial hair, unless you're.
I mean, if you want to make it a hair requirement, it's okay. I might have to go to some foreign countries and get some hair. All right.
And lose a kidney.
Inside story. I have both my kidneys for the record. So today on Health Optimization, Medicine and Practice, actually the SNH podcast, we're going to be introducing you guys to two of our newest teammates. I'll start first. Dr. Jup Kuipers. Sorry, I will mess up Dutch every time, even though I lived there for 7 years. Is somebody who I've actually known for quite a long time. And is general practitioner in the Netherlands, but also has completed his health optimization medicine certification. And we've worked together with a couple of clients, and I'm really excited to have him join as our new Vice President of Europe. So, Dr. Kuipers, can I have you say a little bit?
Yes, you can, sir. Thank you for the introduction. So the way you pronounce my name is Jup Kuipers, so it's very well done. And as you said, I'm a Dutch physician. I live in the Netherlands. And I work there in family medicine, but I've been a home practitioner now for almost 3-4 years, I guess. The more experience I gain, the more I see the value in it of moving the needle on health. And I was very honored that you asked me to be vice president for Europe, because I would love to talk more about home in Europe on stage, to get other MDs or practitioners enthusiastically about getting their certification and helping them implement home in their current practice. So that's what I'm going to be doing the coming year in 2025.
Yes, we're very excited to have you. Yep.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Boomer left Amsterdam, and now you are a representative in Europe.
I have to get you a better baseball hat. I'm sorry.
It's American, right?
Yeah.
And we also have another new faculty member. This is Dr. Alan Bukatz, and Dr. Alan Bukatz actually was one of the first people to get trained in HOMeHOPE, but he failed the first time. He'll tell you about that. But it didn't stop him. He's going to be helping us in the United States with education. He's based in the Southern California area, as you can tell by his locks and his wave right there. There you go. He lives in Hermosa Beach. You guys can go knock on his door. So Alan, tell us a little about you and your story here as far as arriving at HOMeHOPE.
Yeah, so I'm an emergency doctor, so I get to see every day the end spectrums of disease. And when people don't have, even when they have great access to primary care, it's pretty limited. And so you can only do that for so long and feel like you need to make a difference in a different way. And I felt called to learn about when I was introduced to the team at HOMeHOPE and Health Optimization Medicine.
2018,
yeah, at the inaugural stage. I believe Dr. Ted, the initial test, you're correct, I did fail it.
It was hard. The first test was hard.
I believe the same test as the board, right?
It was made for like a European board exam. And it was
European board.
The Philippine crew that helped us create the modules, it was not easy. I mean, even Dr. Ted almost failed it. So
Fantastic. It makes it feel a little bit better.
A little bit.
We didn't know that at the time. And so it was a little discouraging, but I needed to bounce back quickly and finish it did pass the most recent
Yes, you did. Yeah.
metabolomics module, and just found a great team here to continue to learn and develop this passion and see what we can offer.
Cool. So you guys will be seeing more from both Dr. Bukatz and Dr. Kuipers in 2025. And let's take a little brief break, swapsies a little bit, and we'll get the rest of the team on to talk about the future and what it brings. So at Health Optimization, actually, let's go back to last year's symposium, and I'm going to take everybody there to Dr. Ted's initial speech at the symposium. And October 2023. And if I get my dates right. And Dr. Ted walked on stage and said, "Hi." Hi is a 4-letter word in health optimization, medicine, and practice. We'd like to reiterate that today. And we're going to be talking about 2025 and what the future holds for the world of health. Now, we've already introduced a couple new colleagues here, and health optimization, medicine, and practice is changing. We're evolving, we're growing. And in 2025, we're going to be introducing a couple of new key features to the cohorts. Dr. Scott's been working diligently on epigenetics. Do you want to talk a little bit about what we're going to be doing there?
Yeah, we're really excited about this. So we've been running the cohort on metabolomics, which is a small group of students that go for the 12-week module, which has been really fantastically successful. We've had a lot of great students that have had a lot of great opportunities to really meet with the faculty and then them each other. And so what we're going to do for next year, 2025, is that we're going to be doing the same thing for epigenetics. And so Dr. Lucia Aronica, she's a lady of PhD, Stanford. She's been very vital in the world of epigenetics over the last several years, and she's helped write the module. She'll be involved in, it'll be a 6-week epigenetics module cohort style. So very excited to get that out sometime early in the first quarter of 2025.
All right. Other additions. Obviously, we've updated some of the other modules. I know, Jody, you've played a big role in particularly exposomics, right? And so do you want to talk a little bit about what's been going on that side of life?
Well, you get to see my face more. That's one thing. Yeah, lots of videos. So in the world of exposomics, we're discovering many, many more chemicals. So that's not great. But we also have a lecture by our very own Dr. Pinky on the module. So I think it's a foundational module to take because of what we have to be aware of in our environment. It is getting scarier, and we need to be looking at our little emptying our cups full of toxic junk, should I say, or being aware of what we need to clean up. So, and it's a big one that we have to talk about to our clients. And I spend a lot of time with clients trying to clean up their environment so that their bodies are working much better. So that is very exciting. So I think we should all be taking the exposomics module.
As a person who bought a house this year, the exposomics module was very, very helpful and practical. Last conversation about 2024, we ended with artificial intelligence. This time in 2025 Outlook, I want to start with artificial intelligence. Now, I also want to encourage a time cap at some point, but I'm going to pass it over here to Dr. Ted. And you mentioned something in our last conversation about agentic systems and how those may be coming in 2025. Let's talk about those and what other trends you see in AI in 2025 as it relates to practitioners.
First off, in the first quarter of 2025, we're gonna be ready to launch our artificially intelligent analysis and interpretation engine, right? So we have a very, very complex metabolomic test results. You feed them into there. It actually reads the test results. And most LLMs right now, I find it difficult to read highly graphical images no matter what they tell you, right? The hype is different from the actuality when you're doing the actual programming. And we were able to do that. And it's actually one of the things that I'm presenting in the symposium. And I think it would be, although Boomer hates this because it will make the practitioners lazy, actually the automatic interpretation and analysis can point the practitioner to certain practical things that they have neglected, right? They can always edit what the results are, but it shows what they may not have seen in the test results. Essentially, we're looking to release that in the second quarter.
Let me just point out something here. One of the biggest issues a clinician has in terms of growing their business is scaling themselves.
Yes.
And this is a problem that you, I know, have had, and everybody here has had over the years. And in many ways, this is an attempt at solving that issue.
Yes. The problem that we've been trying to solve, since 1988, actually, is, artists can have a one-to-many relationship with their fans, right? They basically have an album, they can distribute to their fans, and they have a relationship with their fans. But doctors and practitioners have to do it one-on-one. They see one client or one patient at a time. And that means we're not scalable. So we're only billable by the hour, right? So my solution was I've always been looking for a solution for one-to-many system for physicians and healthcare practitioners. So I created one where you could be represented by a custom avatar of you that's able to answer whatever questions your patients may have, about their test results, and so on. And that will, probably 20 people can be asking you things at the same time in their own time zone, and so on, without you actually having to be there. But you are actually also sure that the information that's being given out by you or your digital twin is actually accurate and understandable by your patient or your client. Now, that's an obvious solution. Actually, it's not an obvious solution. It's only now that it's possible because the technology is there, right? In fact, one of our problems still with the technology is that the response latencies, right? When an avatar begins to speak, it's like you have to wait for the whole thing to buffer into your system, and we're solving all those kinds of problems. So that's for the first half of 2024. Of course, we're going to be improving, a lot of those with large language models that are actually more fine-tuned towards what you do. And it's a system that's not just really available for HOMeHOPE practitioners, can be adapted to any other medical specialty that's illness-based, right? Now, there's also the rise of agentic systems, which there are many free competing frameworks in the market. I've been monitoring them. They are actually used, and I promised Boomer that I was going to create him a group of 20 artificially intelligent employees just using agentic systems.
So you just mentioned agentic systems. You gave an example there, but let's back up just a second, because I'm guessing most people are thinking agentic systems. Is this like Mr. Anderson from The Matrix?
Yes and no. Essentially, you can take a look at an agentic system as, there are many types, classifications that we'll give out there, but the simplified way of looking at it is that it's essentially, if you're looking at a company, it's a person with a specific role, right, to do certain things. Now, an agent is actually like a shell that you choose the brain for it, which is a large language model. You choose the input for it, which is either text, input, etc., that it will take in. And then you give it the tools by which to process something, right? So, for example, if it's the agent is a researcher, you give it like, find me all the things that you can find in the internet about this. It will use the large language model that you actually use as its brain, and it decides now which is actually relevant to your search as it pulls in the relevant searches. Now, you can now chain these agents together and or have them report to one particular manager to do the task. There are things like sequential. You pass on one task to another until the task is finished. For example, if you want to have a report written, you can pass I want a report written with this, with the following outline, and then advanced agentic systems that host those things, like, for example, the O1 of LLM model of OpenAI will think, right? They will give you, okay, here's my plan. Do you approve it? That's called HITL, human in the loop. You can actually also make it totally automatic, right? And then are you okay with this? And you say yes or no, I want you to change this particular part of the report to a conclusion that's more of a compare and contrast, rather than recommending which one is the best, right? So, and then it will pass it on to a writer, which will write this, and you'll pass it on to an editor and say, okay, you lack references for this, and we have to cut down this, and then they will just, these are different agents with brains, with input arms and with tools by which you can process that, and then they have an output that they pass on to another agent. Much as there's a lot of hype about it, if you take a look, there are many competing frameworks on how this will get done. Because I think the final goal of the likes of Microsoft, etc., is for the ordinary man to create an agent for what he wants to do. For example, I want an agent to actually just tell me which particular parts of my, to comb through my email today and see which is actually relevant for me to respond to, and which one actually needs a personal touch. Right? So for all the others, it will just generate it based on the knowledge base that you give it. So the LLM will have some knowledge base and say, we're not doing that because the company is this. That comes from your company information. It's known by LLM, and then it's put out, right? The email is placed and responded to. So those are, in fact, the billion-dollar unicorns are those that are companies are, predicted to come, with just one person at the helm who knows how to program, who knows how to do these agents, and essentially lots of just agent employees doing that.
What about no-code programming? We're starting to get there, right?
Yeah. Right now, it's low-code programming, really, because no-code, for very complex systems that we do in healthcare, right, we need a lot of very, very specific tweaks in the code that a no-code system could not do. But for the ordinary person, a no-code system would be easy. It's very graphical. It's just like putting a diagram.
Drag and drop.
Yeah, it's drag and drop interface, and you see if it works. But for me, that point is for personal use, consumer use, etc. But for business use and healthcare use and all of that, we need to be able to merge the two. And I'm actually excited about the hybrid systems that are now coming out between expert systems and neural networks, because there are just some things that an expert system can do that a neural network cannot do. Right.
And let's define expert systems for people. So, for example, if-then statements would be
expert systems. So it's just like the algorithms that they use in ER. For example, if your airway is this, and the bleeding is this, and the circulation is this, and the drugs is this, then XYZ. Right. So we have many of those algorithms, but they do not take a look at context appropriately. For example, an AI system can take a look, even if a doctor has taken a patient history, for example, right? And then what the AI can do is actually find the correlations in that information that the physician might have missed, right? There was a recent article in British Medical Journal saying that artificially intelligent systems are 80 times more accurate, right, than physicians in making diagnosis. And, they were way more empathetic than actual physicians. So this
much better bets on that.
But the problem that we're having, and which we are actually addressing with HOMeHOPE, is that the doctors don't know how to ask AI systems. They ask it because they think they're God and they know everything. They will just put in specific sections of the particular part of the case, instead of dumping the entire case and says, "What do you think of this?" Right? And it is surprisingly, they perform a lot better than the physician would, because it sees a lot of all of these patterns that the physician could not identify. The problem, of course, is the hubris of physicians, right? It's the ego that says, no, I'm going to use that. But what we're doing here in AI with the introduction of our AI engine and so on is getting them used to the fact that what they do can be shortened. Right? I used to take me 5 hours when I was new to read a metabolomics test. I'm able to reduce it now to 2 hours, but I cannot reduce it any further, right? Because I have to take a look at all the data and see whether or not I'm missing something, right? But with this automated system that's AI assisted, it can even pull through all the references that I put in there. It's like, I actually missed that. And the other thing, which also where we have to make a plan for the patients, right? Is a behavioral, like what behavioral changes do you suggest, right? And you will have to think about behavioral changes based on the results. What nutritional changes do you suggest, etc. AI can just pull that out together for you, right? And so the biggest changes here in 2025 would be you could see all of these tasks being broken down into agents. And it has a pretty bad acronym, but it was be agents as a service. So, and you will see that the
Ass. It did take me a second.
But I think what will happen is that larger institutions will just be able to subscribe to particular agents that do particular tasks. Like, for example, oh, let me just rent your researcher. Let me just rent your image processor. Let me just rent. So they're all subscribed to, and then you could put the agents together to do a particular task. And biggest realization that we've had is that domain-based knowledge LLM training is actually the best kind to produce the results that you want, right? For example, if you like legal, one is well versed in legal cases, then you train an entire important that. Us in health optimization medicine, the foundational detection and correction system is the metabolomics test. Then we actually train the system in that, right? So the developments in the software are, essentially just a reflection of the initial excitement that we've had about it. We initially guessed that larger and larger models will get us there, but now we show that smaller models that are actually trained to particular domains are actually easier to use than a generalized system. Of course, a general system is difficult because they're expensive to use. And the second is that you have to actually figure out how to prompt them properly so that a particular domain of knowledge is actually accessible to you, right? For example, it took me a month to actually figure out how to make
Submit the form.
submit a form. Yes, GPT actually say, okay, I want you to complete this form for me, right? And now Claude, for example, showed ahead of time that they can now automate an agent to actually go to the different parts of your form and actually fill it out for you and so on, which is exciting, right? In terms of that, but it's like having a ghost like filling out the form for you and so on. What I predict is that with the current phones that you currently have now, next year that would be more commonplace, right? I just got a Z Fold 6 AI. Right.
And Jody and I have the Apple 16, right?
Yeah. So that this will be on your phone a lot more. So one of the things that we might be thinking of, all of these health device companies, right, will actually start using a lot of that. And for which my critique is like, who owns the data, right?
Yeah.
Which is like one of my key criticisms with Aura. It's like they own your data, right? And that's very very telling of what is the gold in that world. The gold in that world is actually information, or data rather, not information. There's a difference between data and information. But anyway,
one is structured.
Data are actually points of observation, right? Information is actually organized data. So that's a very fundamental thing that you learn in medical informatics, right? Where you have to separate what's a datum, and then what is information, and then what is knowledge, right? Knowledge is personalized information. So you could see all of these things. Those are basics, by the way. It's not my prediction for 2025, but you will see all of this more commonly in your devices that you use, and in the health devices, gadgets that you will be taking, and that can be useful because it provides an instant assessment of what's going on. It also can be dangerous because when an AI makes a mistake, right, it can report it, and the person can get suddenly very agitated, but it's actually interpreting it the wrong way, right? The other thing that you have to watch out for in AI, the trend that you're looking at is the rise of the robotic systems. They're becoming a lot better, right? And they've shown robots are folding your clothes and and actually holding an egg. These are things that we're not
we're talking the humanoids here, right?
Yeah. the talk about the displacement of jobs is very real. And you could see probably some of that occurring next year. And one woman famously said that, AI will not displace jobs. People who use AI will displace them. So, I encourage people. There's a question that's actually often asked: is coding still going to be relevant, right? After AI, you know what? In the development of complex software, you still need to know how to code, right? Because you need to know how to actually polish and program. In my experience, and I was telling this to Boomer after doing the prototype of our AI software for HOMeHOPE, is that the way you program things is really very different from the classic way of doing programming, because you have to defer a lot to how the AI will actually do the thing for you. For example, I'll give you just a very simple example. You convert a text document to a Word document, right? The TXT to docx file. Normally I would just get a Python library and just, convert, right? But here, what you do is you talk to the AI and say, convert this text into a beautifully crafted Word document with a blah, 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 blah. And you have to find the right words where it actually does it for you, right? And then returns the document to you. It's a lot more versatile in that you could actually prompt it to say, okay, here's a Word document converted to PDF. Here's a PDF converted back to Word, and so on and so forth. But before you would use different libraries for those, but now you actually defer to the system. And more of our programming will become that way. But more and more actually be owned. Like if it fits in your laptop or it fits in your phone, probably a lot of the processing will be done for you. So you also see next year a trend in smaller and smaller language models, from large to small language models, but they're very, very domain specific into what it could do. For example, Apple, right? They're after a language model that can actually fit in your phone and can do things in the apps of your phones, right? So it can monitor your phone, what's happening in there, but right now it could not monitor anything else outside of it. For example, you have an ingredients list, right? And you snap an ingredients list and say, find me a recipe for this. The language model inside the iPhone won't be able to do that. It has to access a bigger one and say, okay, here it is. We don't do basically fits and jumps, right? The fits and jumps era of AI is over. You see now what you will see now in 2025 is incremental improvement over the previous and a better organized way of doing things. It's still going to be a major push for companies, for consumers to use it. But in terms of like healthcare, education, etc., they're already there. For example, MIT already has classes that are already teaching coding by having an AI tutor only, right? There's no more faculty and so on. So if you have children, you also have to think about, the education of your children and how AI is going to impact their lives, right? In terms of being able to, AI is famous for hallucination, right? And you should be able to tell your kids, like, okay, here's how you verify the data, right? Large language models have a cutoff point for training, and therefore you have to put a search so that it could give you the current scores of the, whatever sports team that you're looking at, and so on, because it has a definite endpoint of training. But what it can do is it can actually seamlessly integrate it to what it finds. Next year would be an incredible year for a very efficient domain-specific models, right? There would be a better way for the different companies like OpenAI, Anthropic, Microsoft, Amazon, etc., to be able to have a standard format for being able to use their large language models, right? It has just been proposed, and I don't know what the uptake is going to be. But if you look at the cell phone industry before, they standardized, different companies standardized on a protocol, right, that they all use. So this is happening now. This is another communication system anyway, same structure. So they're now looking for, the standards have already been proposed, and I'm looking forward for the adoption of these standards. So it's whether or not you use Anthropic's large language model, or OpenAI, or AWS, you would still be able to access them via a single API. That's more or less that's uniform, right? Because right now you have to read the API for all. Although, just something of fun here is that if you're totally lazy to read the API, I love reading text stuff, so there's no problem for me. But I tried it, like, okay, here's the API for OpenAI for this particular thing. You ask it to ingest it, and then you say, okay, here's my code. Can you evaluate it against the API that you read? And it will actually write the code for you following that API. So, there are many things, there are many ways that you can do it, but a standardization would actually be a lot better rather than issuing a lot of these things. So we're already at a stage where I think next year would be a part of deal is standardization, decreasing LLM size, and the use of agents in domain-specific systems like HOMeHOPe. Next year, although we have the current system right now, I structured it so that each portion of it can become agentic, right? So, and then you convert it to an agentic system once the battle for the frameworks has already been settled, right? Because there are many frameworks that are competing from really, really very good people and very good companies.
Well, thank you. And I kind of knew this was going to happen, that as soon as we introduced the it's actually the TED LLM. What's sitting next to me right now is just TED GPT. All right, so I knew that we would talk about artificial intelligence for a while because it is the technology of our time, right? The next topic that I want, and I don't want to just gloss over it, but we do want to move on to our next topic, the rise of longevity clinics and longevity and health optimization clinics. Now, I'm going to pass it over to Scott first because, Scott's always willing to talk. And then Jody, you actually have an in-person clinic, so we want to get your opinions on this too.
Yeah, well, thanks, Dr. Ted, for that treatise on AI. I think I understood about 50% of it. That's better than I used to, so I'm getting there. So, but again, that's why we're making these systems for doctors, because we're not that smart. What I've seen over the last couple months, or really over the last year, but I think is going to really accelerate, is the rise of longevity clinics. These are happening all over the world. I'm part of a group of doctors in this WhatsApp group. There's like 250 of them around the world, all call themselves longevity doctors. But I think it's still very much the Wild West when it comes to this area and the field. There's still a lot of emphasis on living longer without the health span aspect, which we emphasize so much at HOMeHOPe. The idea of not just, Dr. Ted likes to tell the story, if you have a genie and you get wishes, if you ask for eternal life, you better ask for eternal youth at the same time, or else, it's not going to be a fun way to be long living. So the areas of longevity that I think are very exciting, there's repurposed drugs, there's definitely a lot of sort of novel treatments. They're looking at plasmapheresis and all these other crazy things. But I think what we have to be careful of, and this is important for us at HOMeHOPe, is that are we working on that foundation first? Like, you just don't want to go out and just buy yourself some rapamycin and take it weekly and think that you're doing yourself a service if you're not also optimizing your vitamins, minerals, nutrients, your metabolomic testing, your GI, your gut, et cetera. So, Dr. Ted has talked about this. We've talked about this. Like, a lot of these different fields need a framework that focuses on health and not just, the newest and coolest drugs, which may be very helpful, or the newest and coolest technology, which also could be. But it's, again, that foundation that matters. And we call it holobiont hacking here at HOMeHOPe. This is the holobiont, the holoorganism that is us and the foundation. And several years ago, we talked about this. Actually, Ted, he presented on it and at a conference of biohackers at the time, and saying, biohacking was doing the same thing. And it was looking at the new technology, the new supplement or whatever. I remember people going up to me at some of these conferences, like with little pill bottles that weren't even marked, like, "Hey, try my new supplement." I'm like, "No, I'm not going to try. What is this?" And so that's the kind of world that the biohacking space was creating. And at this point, at that point, then, Dr. Ted was saying, "Look, we need a framework," and I think that's the same thing that you're going to see for these longevity clinics that are popping up all over the world too.
So I guess, thank you, Dr. Ted. Thanks, Scott. On the ground running, I see a lot more awareness around different technologies, which is good. So it brings people through our door. what I'm worried about is that the shiny things look good, and the shiny things haven't withstand evolution, and so we have to come back to the basic cell. And the thing is making it shiny and fancy for people to be wanting to be interested in it, and that comes from the clinician itself. It comes in the rapport, it comes in the trust and the knowledge. So what we're trying to create here is just that, is that reputability, the respect, and the connection with the people that we're talking with. And so personalized medicine is something that's going to be huge, but you can't be lost in the top of it, as I say to my clients, and you have to get on the ground and run. And it's hard work. It's not as sexy. You've got to put in the work. You've got to put in the time. I've got clients who have been working on this.
Their clients have to put in the work too.
Yeah, for years sometimes to get the results, and it's constant adaptation. And so it's how we put that to them, and how it becomes a little bit more of an overarching understanding of it takes work. We can't just take these fancy drugs or take these fancy peptides. They don't work. They don't work.
You just inject everybody testosterone and say goodbye.
And even hormone balancing, you have to work on the lifestyle. You can take the hormones, but if you don't do the work underneath, they don't work. So it's primary foundational cellular work that we have to make cool and hip, and I think we've got the right people to do it.
One thing I'm just going to add to everything you guys have said, and maybe Ted's going to jump in after me, protocols and the rise of people following protocols from social media or from somebody who's a PhD who doesn't actually see clients. This is somewhat concerning for all of us, right? I think many of us get sent like, hey, what do you think about X? Like, hey, what do you think about my red light catheter with my vagal nerve anal dilator, right? Like, it's one of those things that they come out of nowhere sometimes from these well-meaning PhDs who have a lot of affiliate commissions attached to them, and they don't necessarily work, or they don't have any consideration for what the client is able to do. So words of caution, more or less. This is kind of tangential to that longevity clinic, although some of these people are opening longevity clinics. And it's something that, we all need our foundations.
Well, it's just on the name of longevity. I was looking at the opposite of the name longevity and juvenity, right? But when someone mentioned the word, it sounds like juvenile. And actually what we're doing is rejuvenity, right? This is longevity versus... This is bigger. But I already got rejuvenity.com. So anyway,
Considered prior art. Sorry.
When we're talking about longevity, there seems to be, that's quantity of life, right? But there seems to be no matching term for quality of life. And, and I think that is rejuvenity, which is found in the word rejuvenation, right? So essentially, if you take a look at Aubrey de Grey's model, right, what people are mostly focused on is the repair of what has been damaged, or of the metabolism that has been damaged. And these are the stem cells, these are the plasmapheresis and all of that. That's a repair mode, right? Well, it's enticing, right? Because procedures cost money, and it will make the practitioner money. However, we chose the high road, a more difficult path, which is essentially the maintenance mode, which is keeping the metabolome healthy. So aging is really, essentially your metabolism, and then, it gets damaged, and then you age, right? So that's Aubrey de Grey's model. And we're always focused on the damage and repair. Again, it's kind of like the world's focus in illness. And no one's been focusing on how do you maintain a healthy metabolome, right? Like in the car dashboard analogy, how do you indicate that, a tire has actually inadequate pressure? Your body will run, right? But it will not run optimally. So these are the kinds of things that I'm looking at in terms of, the world's focus on longevity, and our focus is in rejuvenity. Right. So many students are surprised when I say, we're not weight loss doctors, we're fat loss doctors, because people come to you, I want to have weight loss, right? And well, that's very goal oriented. But the thing is, when you want to optimize health, it's a continuous thing. If the practitioner tells you you have to come in every quarter, then you have to come in every quarter for that. But I like that new. For example, we have pushed for new ideas, and I like to see them take on in 2025, which is, at the back of our minds, which Boomer has been solving, is how to provide like insurance for our practitioners. Things like how do you persuade the corporate to replace one of their C-suite annual whatevers. They get an annual MRI, and what do you need an annual MRI for? Replace it with a clinical metabolomics test. Right? Little things like this that move things forward. We have initial successes and failures in different countries, but as people see more of the value of what we have, this is, I think, going to be more entrenched in 2025 as to how we view. It's not we don't want longevity only. We want rejuvenity also, and that kind of balance. And there's nothing wrong with living a long life, but if it's a long life with pain, we'll forget it. Right. So that's what we want and ingrain in the people's minds. And in 2025, that will be you hear a lot more of that messaging from us.
Yeah. And just to echo that, I mean, I think everybody in the longevity space, and we're talking to you, all you, is that the foundation of your practice really needs to be health as well. And so that's what one of the things that Dr. Ted said to me back in 2017, it's like HOMeHOPE doesn't take the place of illness medicine or root cause illness medicine or whatever it might be, but it's just the foundation of it all, right? And so if you're not looking at the foundational things, you're going to miss the boat instead of just looking at all the sexy things you can potentially do. So on that point, and then also on the protocol side, which Boomer mentioned, it is a big worry for me in 2025 that this is becoming more and more prominent. You have more books coming out. You have more influencers that don't see patients, don't really understand how patients or even individuals other than themselves work with their protocols that they're sending out to everybody. It's just concerning. And, we get the flack on our side as clinicians because we have our patients or clients come to us and say, hey, can I take this 75 pill protocol for 5 days and not eat anything and then just use breath as my prana? This is my energy. And breatharian, I know. And so these all have their context, I think, and that's okay. But my concern is that we have to be very careful about what is out there and that what we're actually listening to, especially people that aren't seeing patients on a regular basis.
Oh, besides, we can already measure anyway with the metabolome. Why should you follow a protocol when a specific protocol, which is essentially respects your biochemical individuality of what you need, right? It's already available. So let's just test and then develop a protocol specific for you. In fact, that's one of the things that differentiates us from illness medicine too, is that, we do qualitative statistics and illness medicine does quantitative statistics. So we survive on case reports really, and there's really nothing wrong with case reports, right? So there's that actual difference in the quality, right? For me, a long life is basically a beneficial consequence of a high quality life.
All right. If we want to just, I think one quick topic here, and then we're going to wrap up with just a final question. So there's a bit of a movement now around this idea of being sober curious. And I just heard the term tonight that it's called sober curious. But if you look at people, I guess you would call them Gen Z versus current boomer generation, wine consumption is down to like 1/6 of what boomer generation was consuming. And so this movement with whether it be alternative ideas, things like microdosing or just having non-alcoholic beers is quite a curious one. So I would love to hear what you guys think about sober curious.
Well, I'll go because I've had quite a few clients now. Like the shift is quite big this year, and going into next year, it'll be really interesting to see where this takes off. So I know we mentioned this earlier, but a lot more people are doing catch-ups outside of the bars. Catch-ups in nature. They're going to beaches and ice baths and meditations at the beach. They're meeting people in different ways. So I think that's first step because I feel with alcohol, it was always such a social pressure issue. But not only that is that, a predominant of my clinic at the moment is perimenopausal women. And so it's the impact of that they're unable to actually consume the alcohol like they used to. So, and the environment currently with the social construct that's going on is supporting that. So I'm finding that to be quite rewarding for them. But also understanding that a lot of clients, where they never used to, they come to me and they say, I know alcohol's a poison, but what do I do? So yeah, it's really good to be offering support for people.
Yeah, it reminds me a lot of what's happened with cigarettes over the last several decades, where people were drinking or smoking, as it were, tons and tons. And then finally the research kind of came out how terrible it was, although we knew about it for decades ahead of that. But of course, the cigarette companies suppressed all of that.
It pays to have a good lobby.
It does. The sugar lobby, everybody else, right? Mm-hmm. So what I think is happening with alcohol is that the studies are pretty obvious right now that even just a little bit of alcohol is not good for you. It's going to shrink your brain. It's going to mess up your sleep. It's lots of other things that are happening as a result of that. So what I found is that more people are just understanding that this is actually the case. Like Jody said, like people understand that like no amount of alcohol really is safe at this point. And so as a result of that, you have people looking for alternatives. And so I know, Boomer, we were just talking before the podcast about the rise of non-alcoholic beers and how huge of a market. I had no idea how big this market was. And so you have other locations you can go. Jody mentioned some, but there are also places that you make you like functional beverages, they call them, with adaptogens and nootropics. And we know about
like shit.
The reindeer antlers. Yeah, go to Erewhon and Southern California, right? And get a $55 shake and smoothie. So there's a big rise to that. And I think you're going to see that more and more. There are more of these social clubs that are out there that don't even have alcohol, that just have these kinds of functional beverages. And then they're changing people's state, like their ice bath, sauna, whatever it might be. And to try to get people to feel like they're doing something without, making them drunk. So I think we're going to continue to see that in 2025.
In terms of alcohol, alcohol is a sugar, and it's one of those things like refined sugar that I want to see Schedule 1. The costs economically of alcohol addiction and everything else, especially in the United States, is just so big, that it's actually quite laughable that we're concerned with marijuana and cocaine and all of these things that are scheduled. And then you look at alcohol, which is like totally legal, right? And they come to you, my worst patient was 20 years alcohol addicted, right? And if you've ever tried weaning someone away from alcohol, has been addicted to it for 20 years, well, good luck, right? That's really a lot of dedication on your part. And the only thing that you could wish is that, if he's a very rich person, that you be bequeathed a huge amount of the inheritance. But anyway, because it's a difficult process, right? I swear it's probably the most difficult addiction that you will ever face, right? Because it's insidious, right? The alcohol addiction is quite insidious. Unlike cocaine, it's very fast. You see someone's actually addicted to cocaine or addicted to meth and so on. And I have a confession right now. I'm actually high on life. And one of the things that we try to do, right, is actually go and take a look at, well, okay, what gives you the same state as alcohol, right? Gives you euphoria, a mild form of disinhibition, and so on and so forth, right? Are there any natural molecules out there that can do the same thing without doing same harm, right? And you can use AI to do that, but you can just also go take a look at various different cultures and what they do to calm themselves down, what they do when, someone is actually grieving, and to lift the mood and so on. So these are the kinds of things that, set us actually into thinking with, for example, prescriptions, right? In terms of, okay, what are the things that we can create in turkey form that can actually lift mood, that's an all natural. And it's actually interesting to find out that some of the ingredients that we're considering that are actually plants, are actually scheduled. I said, yeah. And then you schedule alcohol, and this one is actually a lot better. So in terms of the rise of this, it's a very good indicator that people are actually have become aware, right, of the effects of alcohol and everything else. They're also very much willing to put in some effort into some activities that can make them feel better. But it's the thing that I caution against it is that it's it's not a sustainable habit, right? These things cost money. These things, after a while, your body will adapt to all of these things, and then I'm not interested in anymore. So what we actually recommend more at Health Optimization Medicine is actually a change in your lifestyle. You can just get addicted to the to the feeling of wellness, right? It's a feeling of wellness is like riding a bike. When you know that balance that's in there, if you fall off, right, like you ate, 2 scoops of ice cream today, you'll know exactly how it feels to be off balance, right? But just like the recovery period in exercise, you can actually get back and balance yourself again, right? So that is the thing that these companies need to learn, right? It will certainly be in our messaging, but unfortunately, as long as the product sells, like who cares? Like liquid death. So
great marketing story.
Yeah.
A couple of, just leave this conversation with a study, David Nutt, I think it was 2011 or somewhere around that neighborhood, in the UK, looked at harm to self and harm to others. And it was alcohol was either number 1 or number 2 behind heroin. And then 15, 16, 17 was LSD, mushrooms, and things that we would classically be told are bad. And there is a case that you probably shouldn't take psychedelics before a certain age, but it's the writing's on the wall, right? That these are very harmful substances. Second thing, in the Netherlands, the non-alcoholic beer industry alone is a $1 billion a year industry for a population of 20 million people. So that's pretty impressive itself. All right, let's wrap up this with just one quick, here's what I'm looking forward to in 2025. Who wants to start?
Short and sweet. I'm looking forward to seeing more practitioners and doctors in HOMeHOPE and connecting and supporting them.
I'm looking forward to the engagement of the enlightened leadership of HOMeHOPE, Boomer, Scott, Jody, Alan, and Yup here. And, to see something actually, the lever that we're pulling actually open, right? And it's opening, right? And it's a fun time and a fun place to be in. I was just talking to Yup earlier, and I'm always reminded of the Rumi quote, when I was young, I wanted to change the world. When I was wise, I wanted to change myself. And we're doing both in health optimization, medicine, and practice.
It's a hard act to follow. But what I would say here is that even though I don't quite understand the AI practitioner of the future that Dr. Ted has been developing, I'm extremely excited for it, because the ability to scale our practices is something, as Dr. Ted said earlier, is very difficult for practitioners to do because we get paid by the hour. So I'm excited to test this, to pilot it, and to really, hopefully lead the charge with the faculty here and others at HOMeHOPE that have already been trained and that will be trained in creating this new practitioner of the future, where we have scalable businesses and, money to feed all my kids and send them to college.
For me, it's all about team and community. And in 2025, continuing to build out the team, to reinforce and build the community, to go out there and make more impact. Well, guys, this is...
Thanks, everybody, for listening. We all appreciate your support. We're grateful for you listening. It's been a great year, and 2025, it's a rush.
Smarter, not harder.